This video looks at Specification 4.1.1.1. Additional information. Students should understand how thinking like an economist may differ from other forms of scientific inquiry. If you really understand this idea, how economists think differently from other scientists, you will instantly sound more intelligent in essays, more confident in evaluation, and much more like an A-level economist rather than a GCSE one. Most students never quite get it, which is exactly why mastering it puts you straight into A-star territory. Welcome to AQA Economics Explained, specification by specification, one bullet point at a time. 1. What does AQA actually mean by thinking like an economist? The specification says students should understand how thinking like an economist may differ from other forms of scientific inquiry. So straight away, this tells us two things. First, economics is a science, but not in the same way as physics, chemistry, or biology. Second, economists don't just collect facts. They use models, assumptions, and judgment to understand how the real world works. This distinction is crucial for exam answers. 2. How do natural scientists usually investigate the world? Let's start with traditional sciences. In subjects like physics or chemistry, scientists can usually run controlled experiments, change one variable at a time, repeat experiments under identical conditions, reach conclusions that are relatively precise and predictable. For example, if you heat water to 100 degrees at sea level, it boils. That result doesn't depend on opinions, expectations, confidence, or incentives. The natural sciences deal with physical laws. Economics does not. 3. Why economics is different. The human problem. Economics is about human behavior. People change their minds, react differently to incentives, learn from experience, act irrationally at times, are influenced by culture, emotions, and expectations. And crucially, you cannot ethically or practically control the economy in the same way a scientist controls a lab. You cannot rewind the UK economy and try again under identical conditions. So economists have to think differently. 4. The use of models and assumptions. Because economists can't run perfect experiments, they rely heavily on economic models. A model is a simplified representation of reality. For example, demand and supply diagrams, the circular flow of income, production possibility diagrams. These models rest on assumptions such as consumers behave rationally, firms aim to maximize profit, other things remain equal, ceteris paribus. Now here's the key point that examiners love. Economists know these assumptions are unrealistic. They use them deliberately to make complex behavior easier to analyze. This is very different from natural sciences, where assumptions are often minimal or unnecessary. 5. Ceteris paribus. The economist's shortcut. One of the most distinctive features of economic thinking is ceteris paribus, all other things being equal. Economists often ask, what happens to demand if price changes, assuming everything else stays the same? In the real world, everything changes at once. But economists isolate one variable at a time to understand cause and effect. 6. Value judgments versus positive analysis. Another major difference is the role of value judgments. Natural sciences are almost entirely positive. They describe what is. Economics contains both. Positive statements, objective, testable claims, normative statements, value-based opinions about what ought to happen. For example, a minimum wage may cause unemployment. Positive. The government should raise the minimum wage. Normative. Economists often disagree because they use different assumptions, prioritize different outcomes, efficiency versus equity, hold different value judgments. This is why economics rarely produces one correct answer. 7. Why economists rarely agree, and why that's okay. In physics, disagreement usually means someone is wrong. In economics, disagreement often means different models are being used, different time periods are considered, different objectives are prioritized. For example, two economists might agree on the facts but disagree on policy. That does not make economics weak. It reflects the complexity of human systems. 8. How this gets you A-star marks in exams. Here's the part that really matters. To score top marks, you must acknowledge limitations of models, recognize assumptions, avoid claiming economics is unscientific, explain why economists use simplified analysis, show awareness of uncertainty and judgment. For example, phrases like, "This depends on the assumptions made." In the real world, ceteris paribus may not hold. Different economists may reach different conclusions. These are A-level economist phrases. 9. The examiner's bottom line. AQA does not want you to memorize philosophers of science. They want you to understand that economists use models rather than experiments, rely on assumptions to simplify reality, accept uncertainty, combine theory with judgment. If you can explain that clearly, calmly, and precisely, you are doing exactly what the specification asks. 10 final takeaway. So if you take one thing from this lesson, take this. Thinking like an economist means understanding behavior, not laws, and using simplified models to make sense of a messy world. If you can explain that, you will score highly. If this helped, subscribe to AQA Economics Explained. This channel covers every single bullet point in the AQA A-Level Economics specification, one at a time, clearly and exam-focused, so you know exactly what to write to get top marks.